Mr. Worf, dispatch a subspace message to Admiral Hansen. We have engaged the Borg.
Hello, welcome back to Star Trek Sodium. This week we have the classic episode, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1, which is the climactic episode of Season 3 of Star Trek Next Generation. In this classic Season 3 classic, Commander Shelby comes to the Enterprise with the hope of being Commander Riker's replacement, should he decide to make the move to a ship of his own. Oh, and there's a B-plot about the return of the Borg. In the scene where Captain Picard is talking with Riker in his ready room, and as Riker is speaking, if you look closely you can see that Captain Picard is playing with a baseball as he sits at his desk. This would be expanded upon several years later when Captain Sisko would be playing with his ball as he sat there at his table. But it all began here with Captain Picard playing with his ball.
You will lower your shields and prepare to transport yourself aboard our vessel. If you do not cooperate, we will destroy your ship.
The Best of Both Worlds is the last episode where we see the Season 1 uniforms. Lever Burton and his cousin Tim actually started to give out the remaining old uniforms to the homeless, despite Rick Berman possibly ordering them not to, reasoning his choice by saying, if they can afford to live on the streets, then they can afford their own clothes. The electronic look of the Borg was initially inspired by the famous Star Trek helmet, which was released some years before this episode, but its inspiration is clear to see. In fact, one of the Borg drones in the background, on the cube, is actually wearing a modified Star Trek helmet, spray-painted silver, in a kind homage to the classic piece of merchandise. During the filming of Best of Both Worlds, Part 1, the Hensing actress, Marina Citrus, kept humming the Star Trek theme during one of the more dramatic scenes. Filming had to be stopped, at which point she apparently apologised, but then did it again on the next take, humming the Star Trek theme, which led to Michael Piller having to take her aside and giving her a big talking to about hum stopping. It was at the end of the production of Best of Both Worlds Part 1 that the production team and actors were given their very first email addresses for reasons of transmitting and receiving the scripts. The data robot actor, Spiner, and the Worf actor saw the benefits of this new electronic communication system, but other actors, like Gates Mook-something and the Wesley person, had no idea what was going on and ironically couldn't get their heads around this burgeoning new futuristic technology of emails. Hugo Chips from the wardrobe department wasn't equipped or prepared for the absolute shock of seeing the actors in full Borg makeup. He reportedly screamed at the top of his voice and had to be restrained at first by colleagues and then by Paramount security guards when his thrashing got too much. Eventually, he was escorted off of the Paramount premises for the duration of the episode's production, being told not to come back until the next episode. The problem was, though, is that at that stage he didn't realise that the next episode was Best of Both Worlds Part 2, which again had even more Borg. The Worf actor's girlfriend at the time, Sigourney Weaver, was possibly visiting the studio at the time of filming Best of Both Worlds. As she'd had plenty of time as a kind of space commando herself, she shouted out tips to the actors as they made their way around the inside of the Borg ship set. The Starfleet characters would be stalking the Borg ship, looking for their kidnapped captain, and then she would be shouting out her crucid tips on how to be walking along or how to hold their weapons. At first the actors found this helpful, but Weaver's never-ending tips would cause Rick Berman to reportedly ask her to leave the studio and never come back, unless, of course, contractually needed for a part in a production at Paramount. Initially, the producers and writing team didn't know which character should be assimilated by the Borgers, but the script mentioned that the victim should be born between 1940, and so it was decided that Patrick Stewart fit the bill perfectly. The second choice for the person to be robo-abducted was Gates McSomething, but she was born approximately between 1928, and so she was much too old to fit the description that was in the script. We all know that this episode is called Star Trek Next Generation, The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, but did you even know that there was a few other names that were in contention for the episode name of the episode? Other names considered include Q-Who 2, Space Cubes, Delta Quadrant Threat, Delta Thrust, Delta Cube, the Locutus Cavalier, Bernadette, Star Trope, and the Delta Locutus Cube Trap Node. These names might seem fabulous, but as an episode could only have one name, the one that they decided on in the end was The Best of Both Worlds, and that's the name that the episode has, if you take a look. Now, allegedly, in early writers' room meetings, before they settled on the draining the well when it came to the Borg, the soapy idea was that Riker would be kidnapped fluorescently by space cavaliers, who would brainwash the bearded commander into joining them as a fellow cavalier using special technology. What happened, though, is that they didn't go through with this idea, and instead went with the idea of the Borgers taking Captain Picard and assimilating him as one of them.
You have committed acts of aggression against the United Federation of Planets.
Rumour has it that there was actually a plan to have a 27th episode of The Next Generation called The Space Pump, which would give fans a chance to relax with a regular sci-fi romp between parts of Best of the Both Worlds. But this idea was scrapped, as it was quite frankly ridiculous to have an episode between part 1 of a story and part 2. But how good could The Space Pump have been? Thanks ever so much for checking out my absolutely soapy facts all about Star Trek Next Generation's final episode of Season 3. Please comment underneath with an acceptable comment if you know of any facts that I missed, or if you have any insight into any of my facts, whether that they're interesting or absolutely crucial. Hit that like button and then subscribe if you're not subscribed, because in that case you will then be subscribed. And I'll see you next time. Hopefully I'll be back in the future. If not, I won't be, although the chances of that are fairly low. Bye!